I wasn't going to. I don't mean to loop it back to Jeranism, but it's the same thing. The propaganda's running an ad campaign, and okay, Jeran, he's a bit of a stooge character, but any info out there, anything bringing this to the public, I don't care as long as they filter back here, which sooner or later they all will.
Yeah, I just got the vibe from Jaren of Giovanni Battista Riccioli, who named the features of the moon, who was a Jesuit who collected the arguments from the flat earth side and from the globe earth side, and he pretended to be one of the flat earthers, and then he just used his authority to be like, oh no, well, clearly the earth is a globe, got to name the features of the moon, and the rest of the arguments of the flat earthers, we don't have any records of their actual arguments, no books left over. All of that's gone. All that history's been memory hold. All we have is the record that the now Jeranism type has kept of that conversation, how flat earthers discovered the Coriolis effect like hundreds of years before Coriolis supposedly ever discovered it. So they're going to try to memory hold us just like everything else.
Yep. That's why technology is a terrible, terrible thing. I thank God that some of us have still actually got some of the books that all of this is based around. But yeah, I think we really do need if we had a printable service for everything that we've logged and catalogued or talked about on the server or linked to each other over the years, Drace, we would have actually got something equivalent to the Alexandrian Library in hardback.
Yeah, I'm actually writing a little book for Candace Owens right now, and it actually covers how they burned the Library of Alexandria and other times like Constantine when he erased the previous history and the people and writing concerning those people. So it's a common theme within the elites to control history, to control the future. And so I basically spell out where the globe came from, how it got spread throughout history, and how we ended up with it today, and how faulty and shitty their arguments for the globe were, and just why it survived.
Nice, yeah. I'm seeing more and more in other forums or other discussions, like across the forums that we're on and the places that we use as, like YouTube and all these other forums. I'm seeing reference to like fallacy over time and misrepresentation of records is coming through in not just biblical stuff or religious stuff, but also in some sort of the timeline thing, the archaeology stuff, where they're now readdressing how long ago it was that the Romans were actually here in Britain, and how deeply covered it is, and how it leads to it more being destroyed than actually covered up, i.e., time involved isn't right. There's more coming through that stuff has been hidden, and nowadays a lot of the things that you see on the internet and TikTok is that everything's false, everything's a scam. Well, not everything's false or everything's a scam. It's just yes, they're messing with reality and physical records of it.
Yeah, there's a constant effort to do this because it creates a controlled population. The globe is the same thing. It creates a unified religion for people to believe in, and you kind of give away your rational thinking about the world to these giants you think you stand on the shoulders of. But then when you actually look into it, you're like, he was sleeping with his cousin, wearing female shoes? this genius, and then I listened to him actually speak, and I'm like, he actually sounds a little bit retarded.
Yeah, yeah. One of the excuses is that scientists are a bit weird and whatnot because they're all sort of on the spectrum. They're all a little bit ADHD and stuff. But then when people approach us and our arguments and our knowledge base and throw it in, it's reversing our face. Oh, are you all sort of on the spectrum somewhere? Are you all some sort of super IQ? Just because we're not actually accredited and out there by name doesn't mean that we're not as intelligent as the likes of these crazy people that have run the story or built the story or added to the story over time. And I had someone earlier on in lobby seemed to have an issue that the fact that Cavendish was a bit of an unusual person. He didn't seem to like the fact that I mentioned that Cavendish was very strange. He couldn't talk to women. He couldn't associate with people. He literally kicked at balls and sheds in case he affected it. He actually thought that looking at things would affect him. That's not a mental stability, level for any scientist.
That actually that's because this is part of my book, actually. It's because their ideology, the cult that we were all raised in, it comes from ancient Greek, and the ancient Greeks had ideas, and their ideas involved how vision worked. And back in Cavendish's day, when he had his shed, they didn't understand vision. They were still wondering if like eyes shot out invisible laser beams or not.
Exactly. It's not our fault that we've maybe researched a few more things or other levels of science than the majority of people out there have been exposed to. Doesn't make me some sort of PhD or pretend I'm a scientist. I wouldn't try and go and work in optics or something like that, but I do actually understand the mechanics of light, how it works, the mechanics of acclaimed gravity, how that works.
Yeah,
And I can apply it in reality.
That's actually the problem, is that we have like a holistic understanding because we study these things for ourselves to understand these things. And because we're empiricists, we kind of look at what's theory and what's actually known and what are the effects we can actually test and verify. Whereas when you look at scientists and much of our most intelligent people, they have been pigeonholed into a specialty. So they're like, well, I'm a specialist in this, so I understand this, and I will outsource all of my understanding to other specialists. And so this creates a fractured intellectual framework where each part doesn't realize that their part doesn't work with the other part completely. And at the highest levels, you got even more errors because those parts don't communicate internally between each other. They're not qualified to check each other, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of their work is taken individually, collated, and to be honest, a lot of it's swept off the table because it's not actually. It's just data. It's just performance models of expected realities under certain conditions with certain tolerances applied mathematically as a representative of a theoretical idea that is based somewhere in the heliocentrism myth of reality. It's just nonsense, dude.
The data is always real. It's people's interpretations that color the data. And because we're all raised in this school education system and in this indoctrination system of a globe, everything gets colored in that globe, and the globe assumption just gets auto accepted because, hey, we knew this 2,000 years ago. But when you actually look into it, the general public did not know this 2,000 years ago, and it took them actually 2,000 years to be able to start selling it to the public. Before then, it just existed within elite higher upper class as their secret doctrine that made them better than the plebeians. It wasn't until they realized, wait, our secret doctrine is false, well, maybe we'll give that to the plebeians.
Absolutely. And it was reified with an astronomical model on a physical reality of a globe Earth, basically. Like the armillary, I can't even say it, armillary sphere, for me, transfers the what we perceive as a hemisphere and the celestial globe, in a sense. It correlated it straight across into the physical reality of what we're standing on. It reified it entirely, and it's like one of the biggest jumps and leaps in faith and science, like to make a model and imply that it implies the shape of the ground, a model of the sky. And then, further research just shows that it's further reified by mathematical model, not physical reality. We don't actually treat it as such. We don't treat it as a globe in any way, shape, or form. In engineering, in civil engineering, and the physics of water, it just like that. That's where I get a bit annoyed, where people come in and they talk about physics, but it's physics that they've been told it works a certain way. They've never actually seen it work that way, and it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Even when in primary school and in junior school, messing around with water, it, they think it does one thing, but yet they've never seen it curve to the conforms of gravity.
Yeah, no, but the book says it does, and so they imagine it in their minds as babies when their imaginations are super vivid and strong and helps them form a deep personal memory and a connection to it. So much so that they can start to hallucinate the flat horizon as curving, even like standing at the sea level. That's how
Yeah,
pervasive this mental hypnosis is.
absolutely, dude. And as you know, I've got the meme. We do it to ourselves. We do it to our own children because we're not aware of the reality that we can go and test Earth and make sure it is what they say. So, for the love of love and the sake of love, we do it to our own children, Grace, and it's terrible, really.
And
Where people say, "Who do they lie?" Well, there's the meme. Who are your parents? Are they lying to you? They don't know any better. Our
yeah,
scholastic educators work within a heliocentric paradigm model. They're not going to teach you something out with that. They're going to be chucked out of jail.
yeah, we were raised in this system, and so like we can't really blame our parents. We can't really blame the scientist who doesn't know any better and was raised in the same system as everybody else. Uh, what we can blame people for is uh, the willful ignorance once presented with evidence that contradicts their beliefs. Uh, the willful ignorance to maintain that false belief in the face of incontrovertible evidence is what we can fault them for.
Absolutely. And to be honest, the visceral reaction that people have when they encounter flat Earth or they finally get to us, it tells a lot of partly their maturity in the subject or how much they've actually researched, or that the fact that they're actually conditioned to be utterly adverse towards us in every way, shape, or form. It should scream something at them. It does for me.
Yeah, I just watched a really interesting little short today, which was talking about how they took 15 people into a room and had a screen that had a blue circle and a red circle, and they told 14 people to lie and say that there were two blue circles. And so uh, by the end, on the 15th, the person who wasn't in on the test was asked, and only 20% would actually answer truthfully and say uh, there's a red and a blue circle. The 80% just went along with the majority like an NPC. However, if you added one extra person in there who was part of the experiment, knew what was happening, but also told the truth that there was a red and a blue circle, then there was a 60% chance that the other person would actually speak out and admit the truth and say, well, there is a red and a blue circle. So normalizing the subject does help allow people to have the courage to speak about it. But there's always going to be that 40% who are just going to reject their senses and be like, well, no, there's two blue circles there because they said it.
Yeah, it does sound like an appeal to authority. Like if you can if you can swap the outcome by just adding one person under those conditions, yeah, it shows it clearly that people will side with the masses and want to be right in the eyes of their peers.
I think it's a little bit of domestication. I think it's a little bit of domestication, a little bit of like they don't have confidence in themselves. They don't want to take accountability. So, like, to themselves, they can be like, well, I just went with what everybody else was saying. Like,
Yeah.
it's a way to run away from being a human being.
People are lemmings, mate, and they're convinced to be lemmings because it's scary being an adult, Drace. Trying to hold down a family and a job and a career and make sure that you've got a future or retirement somewhere down the road as you get older and keep your health going, keep everybody else happy. You don't have the time to look into science and all these things. So you rely heavily on scientists, governments, world powers to do all that stuff and keep it all running for you, mate. You know,
and
it's a scary thing, and that's why people just shy away from it. But they shouldn't be so adverse by the time they actually do counter it. That should tell them something.
Part of that problem is you, like you say, we want to keep our loved ones safe. We want to just live a good life. And so it's easy to fall into the naive belief that like people in positions of power want the best for me, but that's not historically accurate.
Yeah.
If the people in power wanted the best for you, they would relinquish power.
Absolutely. They would walk into a job. The next government that would vote in would walk into a job and say, within about 3 or 4 days, guys, this is all an entire mess. Can you please help us? Not vote us out. Can you please help us sort it? We don't know what you want anymore. We don't know how to run things anymore. The banks are broken. Money's broken. Can you please help us? And until they actually do that, Drace, I won't believe any of them.
Yep, I'm not telling you the truth, and there's a lot of corruption. So, like, I wouldn't trust them to fix the problem. And what you would need is communities and everybody coming together under a unified understanding. But that's super difficult in today's time.
Super difficult if you don't want to give up control and authority.
Yeah.
We've got the internet, we're all linked. They could quite easily get in touch with each and every one of us. To be honest, mate, and I'm not being a fringe theorist, I know full well who's listening. And I know that people do listen to us, and everybody listens to us, and eventually everyone hears this. So, like, why can't they just knock on our doors digitally and say, okay, what's the deal? Where do we go? How can you help? And if you can't, you can't. If you want to, you can. You can. You know, I mean, we've got infra. What do you call it? Systems that you can work with digitally to do what you can to help repair stuff and what you think the problem is. But they won't even go there. Thankfully, it's all coming to light, like we were talking about earlier on with medicine and the problems that we've been having over the past decade, and with food and big pharma and the problems that we've been having with health over all these years. and the way the human, the reality of it is that we're becoming sick as a race, a human race. Okay, some of us are getting fit and whatnot, but no, in general, we're not healthy. We're not what we're supposed to be. We don't live the way we're living, and more people are addressing this openly now on every aspect. So for me, in a sense, it's just a matter of time. Just a matter of time before people realise that they can't just pillory flat Earth because they're angry about what we say, where they have to address every other aspect of human life and sociology at the moment. Whether it be religion, colour, creed, race, sexuality, or whatever, it needs addressed, it needs talked about, it should be out in the open.
Yeah,
but yet, flat Earth, sorry, carry on.
That's why I mentioned the psychological test, because if you keep to yourself everything, and you don't have the courage to just openly express your position on things, then majority of people are just going to go along with the dumb shit that's happening. But if you do express it, now the majority will actually go along with telling the truth, going along with how things actually are. And there will be a smaller, like a 40% minority, and that's not a generalization, but like roughly, like you because you show other people with the courage to stand up and speak about it, it makes it okay for other people to also express their opinions, learn to critically think, learn to think about things in a different way. A lot of people just haven't been exposed to it. You grew up in your little neighborhood, and then you went on TikTok, and you're watching a bunch of fallacious nonsense everywhere you look, and so of course you're not going to understand logic, and of course you're not going to know how to break down the things you're being told, and you're just going to have to accept it because an authority figure is telling you. But I think at some point everybody just needs to grow up, and that'll solve the issue.
Yeah, it's got a lot to do with it. The whole demographic of youth now stretching well into almost its 30s is a very, very different thing from when I was young, dude,
Like, I knew people 40, 50 years old who still acted like teenage boys.
Is that the crazy people that build the mad 4x4s and go racing in the snow and stuff like that where you are, Drace? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, there's all sorts. Like,
yeah, but
it gets worse and worse as society gets weaker and weaker and softer. You get more and more variance in this. Back in the day when things were rougher, you had a more tougher male population because they understood hardships.
Yeah. Well, looking back, I've always known men to be mature, younger, but also playful and out having fun, older, if you know what I mean. Like the motorbike clubs and going racing buggies on sand and like powerboat racing and like messing around with rocket fuel. Actually, as well as building infrastructures, dams, roads, stuff like that. Really, really level-headed guy, to use a pun. But at the same time, young at heart. Quite happy to climb a tree and cut the top off it 200-300 foot in the air, no problem. No, no health and safety other than a rope and a set of climbing spikes and an axe or a chainsaw. None of your nonsense. Fit and able, from young to old, understanding and being able to learn what it takes to do things and to be a man and build stuff.
Yeah,
But it seems to be getting older and older and fading less and less into this sort of, scared too immature to do it or worried about problems.
Meanwhile, we got 40, 50-year-old people who are still just living for the weekend party, and work is just a dredge to get enough money to be able to do that. Or if they're even working and not on some social security scam or some other means of getting the money, it's like, I know some people who basically started out young in this kind of nonsense, and all the way up till they were like 50 years old, still in the same nonsense. So,
Yeah.
like, back in the day, that wouldn't have been able to be continued for so long without people just dying.
Yes. Yes, very true. In a lot of ways, the state system has enabled people to sit back and do sod all. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Technology has also furthered that, where kids can pass college exams in junior high if they like now with technology. And all they've got to do is put in the groundwork and know what to say, and bang, they're super intelligent and they're flying through college and they're snapped up at 16 or whatever. In the digital world. It's all been reversed and undercut in a lot of ways. But yeah, the social care systems get highly abused because of it as well. And it has gotten to breaking point in a lot of ways. But the other side of it is that they've devalued money and they've doubled they've moved the decimal point and they've increased the cost of things exponentially, orders of magnitude. I could afford a house when I was young, and I did pay for a mortgage when I was young. I've inherited the property that I'm in now, but when I was young, I was able to work enough and pay off the mortgage. Nowadays, they're stuck in a loop. They can't afford to get out of where they are. They can't afford to, even sell what they've got to get better or to get out of the loop. It's not worth what it's supposed to be. It's nothing but an uphill struggle for a lot of people. And yeah, like we're saying, some of them, the majority of them, do not have time to sit down and actually legibly address all of this. When they sit down, they want to zone out or go to fantasy land, which is space. And yeah, it's live for the weekend and party till you drop.
The one I like, OldDude. You're single. You should be able to afford all this stuff.
Oh.
I love that. The amount of times I've heard, "Oh, you're single. You should be able to pay a house off easy." And it's like, what, with half the income? Well, how do you come to that conclusion? It's crazy. It really is.
Yeah, and it's exponential as well, because I've been told that, I'm single and I'm a grandfather, technically. I'm old enough to be out with the loop yet again. I've got I own inherited property, ergo all my incomings have very little or almost zero outcomings. So, in a sense, I should be accruing cash. So therefore, I should be even more, helping out with the economy of the young ones that can't afford it. And yes, I can, and yes, I do, where and when I can. But it's the whole approach of, Pappy, can you buy me a new phone? Like, hello, what? Are you fucking mad? Or a new car? Like, excuse me? Pay my rent for me. You what? And you work? No. I don't mind helping out, mate, but yeah, people need to understand that they've been set up right from the start. in every way, shape and form to stay within the paradigms of society and not actually go out and check what's real.